You're a professional tennis player. You travel the world, play for ranking points, and chase Grand Slam dreams. You're one of the best on the planet at what you do. You've put in 15, maybe 20 years of your life, sacrificed weekends, relationships, even your body to get here. But what does your life really look like? Well, you still pay for your own flights, your own coach, your own hotel, if you can even afford one.
It is just expensive in it.
You lose in the first round, fly somewhere, and lose early again. At the end of a full year of grinding across continents, you could still have shockingly little to show for it. In most sports, being one of the best players means you've made it big. In tennis, it might mean that you're still trying to break even.
Since I've played tennis, it's been a financial struggle.
And well, on the injury and scheduling front, the correlation has gotten so bad that even Novak is speaking out to demand rule changes across the board so that players can get a reset period to combat the rigorous scheduling that tennis is currently offering. Why is this still a problem in tennis after all these years? To find out the true cost of being a tennis player, I traveled to Atlanta and to the INTENNSE arena to chat with tennis pros who are living this reality. They told me about a new solution where financial stability is much more achievable this summer. Would you still chase the pro tennis dream if you knew the reality was barely making any money, spending constantly, maybe even going into debt? Would you risk it all, your body, your mental health, everything, for $40,000 a year? Tennis looks glamorous from the outside. Private jets, 9-figure endorsement deals, mansions in Monte Carlo, and global fame. That's the image tennis sells you. And at the very top, it's true. The top earners rake in millions a year in gross earnings, and most of that isn't even prize money. Endorsements, appearance fees, exhibitions, bonus pools, it stacks up pretty fast. But here's what the sport doesn't show you. There's a financial cliff that most people never see, and understanding why that cliff exists and why nobody's fixed it to this point is what this video's all about. Let's run the numbers. The world number one earns millions of dollars in prize money, plus endorsements that can even triple their earnings. A player barely inside the top 100 pulls into 400 to 500K gross. Life on tour is expensive at this point, but sustainable. Now, drop to number 200 and you're under 200K gross, surviving under pressure. Number 300 sits closer to 50K. And number 500, just over 20K, probably losing money playing tennis with nobody even watching.
My coach is not here, my friends are not here, nobody is watching me. I feel like this match doesn't even count.
If you're only playing futures, it's like, don't even worry about making money the week. Unless you win the tournament, like, forget about it. Things have gotten a lot more expensive in the last 5 years or so. Pre-COVID, there was a lot of housing. The futures would actually provide housing. A week at a futures in the US is gonna cost you a couple grand. You know, everywhere else a little cheaper. It is just expensive. You have to have the level to get out of the futures as fast as possible. Otherwise, it's like quicksand.
And remember, we're talking about gross earnings here. When you look at the expenses in professional tennis, they're truly unlike anything in any other sport. You've got flights.
Flying in America is very, very expensive. You know, I think for people who live in Europe, it's a little easier.
Coaching, hotels, stringing, physio, recovery, and tax, which hits especially hard depending on where you play.
You even make more prize money, but you giving it all to the taxes.
After all is said and done, you start to realize how insane the financial gap is between world number 1 and world number 500.
If you're in the main draw of slams, then you're making money. If you're not, you're losing money. I was 217 in singles, playing some qualies of Grand Slams. There's maybe 1 or 2 years where I made money. The other years I was like at a negative, you know, like at a loss.
The traditional model worked fine decades ago, but as the sport expanded, the expenses grew in a way that was unproportional to earnings and unfair to lower-ranked players. In 2017, former WTA player Nicole Gibbs wrote publicly about her annual expenses as a top-level player. Her estimate, over 200K a year. So let's break down where that money actually goes. Coaching. Well, a full-time coach on tour might earn anywhere from between 5 to 15% of their players' prize money, plus a negotiated base salary and expenses. Coaching fees a year could be well above 50K. Then you have international trips all year round. Flights, trains, Ubers, accommodations. For a full season, that's tens of thousands of dollars in expenses. At the Grand Slam level, tournaments provide some accommodation, but at the lower tiers, you find your own.
If you can at the base level make the sport a lot cheaper, it would be helpful. The problem is like at the base level, it's still very expensive.
Depending on how deep you run in events, racket stringing costs, physios, nutrition supplements, all of that becomes significant. Former top 300 player Karue Sell, and one of my colleagues in the tennis YouTube world, talks about how unique the situation is for different lower ranked players today.
With my YouTube, I was able to pay the bills. So I was like, okay, I can now have to maybe worry about the $70 Uber from the hotel to the airport.
Right, that's a unique situation
exactly.
for you, yeah.
It is tricky to go into a sport where you're just surviving financially, even if it's for a year, it's gonna be really difficult.
At the end of the day, players with more resources are the ones more likely to perform better.
I feel like tennis players are constantly in the stress mode and in a survival mode.
And so maybe the ranking system doesn't even necessarily tell you who's better.
I've met a ton of people that are awesome players that don't play on tour because they're like, nah, I never had the money to. It's not always 100% about who's the best, and it's also who gets the right things at the right time.
It simply tells you who can afford to keep trying. And this creates kind of a competitive imbalance. A top player travels with a coach, trainer, physio, hitting partner, sometimes even their agent. A lower ranked player travels alone. New city, new climate, new surface, every week, and all on their own dime.
You're your own manager, agent, coach, mental coach, physio, because you don't have money to afford all of that. I'm here figuring out my Airbnb, figuring out my rental car, figuring out my next flight. Everybody thinks, oh yeah, you're just playing pro tennis. No, I am literally doing so many things.
In almost every other major professional sport on earth, being one of the best players in the world means you have a career. Take Major League Baseball, for example. The MLB minimum salary in 2026 is $780,000. Players in the minor leagues also earn salaries, albeit lower ones. They have housing provided, receive union representation, and also get paid in the off-season. Even the NBA G League, basketball's developmental tier, pays players a minimum of $40,000, plus housing and insurance. Also, there's a clear pipeline up to the NBA. In the NFL, same thing. Players still have this developmental safety net. Now, I know these are team sports and tennis is an individual sport, but the point is, tennis might be needing alternative paths to success.
Nowadays, I have this one path, and it would be cool to have something new.
The sport itself needs more sustainable careers. Why? The pressure in tennis isn't just financial, it's also psychological. Let me explain. The tour doesn't just test your tennis, it tests your ability to run a small business while also recovering from the emotional hardship of losing pretty much every week.
I see that in a lot of players, the ones that are focused just on saving money and being let's say cheap, they're either taking longer time to make it or they really never make it and they're just stuck there around $500-600 because they're not willing to risk it and to invest a little extra to get to that next level.
To be fair, the ATP introduced Baseline, a guaranteed minimum earnings for the top 250 in 2024. But outside the top 250, zero guarantees.
Unless your parents have so much money, you come from wealthy family or from early on, from young age, you have sponsors, investors. But other than that, it's really a grind.
Is this something that players talk about amongst themselves?
Yeah, all the time.
Another attempt at fixing the problem was to increase the challenger prize pool to a record $32.4 million in 2026. A step in the right direction, but still not enough. The prize money might be better, but the structural problem remains. This is JY Aubone. He's the director of player and coach relations, as well as the media host for INTENNSE. And he has a wealth of experience from the traditional tennis world that's actively driving what INTENNSE is doing today.
All of us in tennis for so long, everyone has been upset with the structure and things that are in place. But how many people have actually tried to do something about it?
In golf, Live Golf came in with guaranteed contracts, team formats, shorter events, and a completely different entertainment model. Love it or hate it, it forced the PGA Tour to rethink things in a major way. In baseball, the Savannah Bananas built an entire brand around entertainment. But what if I told you that somewhere right now, someone looked at the core problems in tennis and came up with some solutions? Yep, I know. It sounds pretty unbelievable, right? And I had to fly down to Atlanta to see just for myself if a league like this could actually work. It's a league called INTENNSE, and on paper, it sounds like exactly what tennis might be needing. Let's go back to that list and start crossing things off. INTENNSE players have a base salary structure. The league has a team format with mentorship and coaching built in. It also solves the viewership problem with a format built for entertainment and for more fan interaction, which is great, especially for people who are maybe a bit new to tennis. And then there's the prize money upside. Some Intense players can make up to $70,000 in 2 months. In other words, players that can't crack the top 200 can net more in 2 months than they would in an entire year on tour. How much does $40,000 mean to somebody who's, say, ranked outside the top 200?
I'm like ranked around 500 now, and even, I mean, when Intense came into picture and they were like 40,000 for 2 months minimum. I mean, when are you gonna make that as a 500 player? Like, never.
For many players, the dream isn't becoming rich. It's making enough to keep chasing the dream. These practice facilities are stunning. Like, the fact that they get these indoor courts to practice on, have the option between indoor and outdoors, is just huge. These players, despite being ranked like 300-400 in the world, are treated like legitimate pro athletes. Now, I want to be clear about what Intense is and what Intense isn't. Intense isn't competing with the ATP or WTA Tour, and Intense definitely isn't going to replace the US Open or Wimbledon. The elite players in the sport are going to be fine, but it's the middle of the sport where Intense is going to have the most impact. What Intense is trying to do is fill a gap in the sport that hasn't really been filled before. The gap between I just finished college and I'm not ready to be done playing, and the point where you crack the top 200. You see, that's the spot where careers go to die. And it's not necessarily because of a lack of talent, but rather a lack of resources. After going to Atlanta and seeing for myself how the league was run, I can say my mind was blown. There just isn't a format like this in tennis right now, and what Intense is doing is truly pioneering the sport forward in ways that haven't been done before. If you're in Atlanta and you want to check out Intense for yourself, I'll leave the link for tickets down in the description, and at the very least, you should check them out on YouTube, where they're also producing a ton of cool content. When all is said and done, whether you're a fan of this format or not, there's no denying that Intense is pushing the sport forward. And the league is also just making tennis more accessible for players that wouldn't normally have a shot, which I don't think you can argue with is pretty darn good for tennis.